let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. Obligatory tests are required. At which point I'm going to need to no. Oh, all right, here we go. Obligatory. I think we're up and running. I think we're up and running. Okay. I do wanna try and listen to music, but you guys won't listen. You guys won't hear anything. Sorry. I'm more of a I get to listen to music. Just because there's nothing. I will turn this down. But anyway, yeah. So it's been a hot second since the last time I did a stream of any kind. Been kind of wanting to be getting into content creation for a while now, but it's just been, hard, difficult to find the time and all that. But you know what? I have nothing else planned for today, and I thought it would be fun that I was going to be doing a lot of deck edits, deck building, Magic the Gathering deck stuff in general. Anyway, actually, this is something I do want to take a look at. Which is just what does this look like? What does this look like? I'm hoping the connection stays good and all that. No dropped frames. Good. Yep. So, all right. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through some just deck building. I'm just going to be deck building, updating decks, just whatever fits my fancy in the world of Magic the Gathering EDH deck construction. That's what I'm going to be doing, and we'll see where it's going to take us. The place I definitely wanted to start out with, though, which I'm definitely seeing as being the big project for the day, is you may see over on this one side over here, I've got this list of this is going to be kind of, I'm using it as a resource tab. It's got some deck lists. I'm going to eventually pull Scryfall up on here later at a later point, but I don't need Scryfall for this because I have all the cards. They're all right here in front of me. So that's not going to be the issue with this one. Instead, what the project is I have two decks. The first deck here is a 5-color good stuff deck. Just the greediest, absolute, just greed fest of Magic the Gathering deck that you've ever seen. And the second deck is a Maze's End deck, which just plays a bunch of gates and is focused on just getting a bunch of lands into play and winning with Maze's End. And these are both the results, the consequences, inspired by when I was very, very young. One of my first Magic the Gathering decks was a 5-color good stuff deck that I played. It was Return to Ravnica Cathero Standard that played Maze's End, and the deck was just it was what it was, a 5-color controlled mid-range deck that was just built around attempting to try and just play a bunch of good removal spells, play good creatures, win the game, but also pressuring from the mana base. The whole idea was that to kind of put like this two-prong effect on opponents where they would have to both deal with planeswalkers, various alternate win conditions, and big cards at the same time as having to deal with the fact that my mana base was winning the game, which was mildly successful. I did better with it than I probably should have, but I would say most of that was due to the fact that I just played it a ton. And I think people who are less like aware of how to, like, I was a new player at the time, and other new players really struggled against the deck because it could really kind of put them in a squeeze. But fast, and sometimes I did win games against faster, more experienced players, especially toward the end of me playing it. But it was never really that good, and the big reason was because it was slow. It was super slow. Played a lot of gates and stuff. But, you know, Magic the Gathering Commander is a very different speed of a format. It's a lot slower. And, you know, I have a lot more cards now. And I have a lot more access to a lot of cards in Commander, period. So, what the deck... I guess there was another 5-color deck that kind of played into this, which was... After that deck rotated out of Standard, I really kind of tried to... Using Magic the Gathering Duels of the Planeswalkers 2012, I think it was. Came out with a number of pre-con decks, and one of them was a 5-color deck. And that 5-color deck, you know, was a super fun, just super greedy, played a bunch of cards from, at that time, a relatively new set, but it was old bit even then, but now it's, like, really old. Shards of Alara block, which was kind of the first... And second, it was like the second really multicolored themed set. Behind, I think it's Invasion Block? That was the original multicolored set? I'm not remembering. But anyway, all things aside, the deck definitely, was just a 5-color, good stuff, Child of Alara, Progenitus, super greedy. And so between playing a lot of that was my favorite deck to play on Duels of the Planeswalkers. One of the two. The other one was the green deck, which I also have a commander deck for. So that plus the Maze's End package, I've always kind of wanted to build some kind of a deck. And I finally came around to it, and it came into 2 parts. First part was just a very dedicated Maze's End deck with a bunch of the new gate stuff from Baldur's Gate and from... everything. Baldur's Gate is such an insane set for Maze's End. It's just ridiculous. And the cool thing about Maze's End is I really like just the gate synergies and the fact that you get to play these janky things, and you get to play a Lance deck that just has a really defined win condition. The problem is it's very linear, and it's I wouldn't say too powerful, because, you know, you're dealing with lands that enter tapped. But outside the lands entering tap, there's kind of this inexorable aspect to it that I kind of... I find myself... I mean, the deck is just draw cards, play lands, draw cards, play lands. And there's nothing wrong with drawing cards and playing lands and all that good stuff. But, like, the deck itself feels like it's not doing anything except for that. Meanwhile, 5-color Greed has the opposite problem. This deck has a bunch of really fun cards within its collection. Just some absolute powerhouses. Just some amazing... I mean, it has Progenitus. It has freaking Chromanticore. It has Godsire. Oh my goodness. It has Niv Reborn. It has the new Atraxa. It has just so many of these big, over-the-top 5-color spells that are just so fun. And there's just a lot of really fun synergies mixed within it. It's a multicolored deck, and all that good. It's multicolored, theme matters, so we've got some of that in there. But it's just big and greedy. But its issue is I found myself often flooding out. And the lands in its current version do absolutely nothing. The crazy thing is like a $400 mana base, most expensive mana base I've ever built. And it's literally the result of me going, oh, I've been collecting for so long, I have a bunch of Shocks and Fetches and Triomes. Can I build a perfect mana base with these? And the answer is pretty much yes. Pretty much yes. And so it's really cool having a just all the mana I can ever want and never having any issues. But the mana base, the problem with it being a shock fetch mana base is it does nothing. I untap and it does nothing. And so if I'm struggling to, and I've found a lot of places where I'm just trying to draw with this deck, and then I end up getting nowhere. So I had an epiphany last night in which I'm like, why don't I do what Sebastiano 10 years ago already did, which is take the mana base from one deck and the cards from another deck. And oh boy, we've got no. How do I'm trying to remember how I can get rid of bots. I've got to deal with the fact that no. Don't want any bots coming in here trying to sell me on stuff. But anyway, because they don't care about Magic the Gathering. They don't care about my Magic the Gathering rant that I've just been going on and on and on about. But anyway, enough of that. I was basically wanting to say, can I take the mana base from one deck, which is a mana base I adore, but a deck that I've been kind of underwhelmed with, and the non-land base of another deck, which is a deck I've been absolutely enjoying and loving. I've played it, and it's really grindy, really long, generates really long games, but I don't care. And one of its issues, the second issue, is it doesn't have a win condition. It doesn't have a defined win condition. Basically, its issue is it's swinging in with 7/7s and 10/10s, and it doesn't have like a combo or anything like that. And so yeah, I wanted to just kind of had the epiphany of is it possible for me to put these two in together? And there is some kind of backing for that. I mean, they share cards. There are some cards that they share, which would be easy kind of merge points. And then there are, so example, for the Maze's End, plays a bunch of awful lands. Like, we're talking this smattering of Haunted Ridge and Undergrowth Stadium are not awful lands. But it's really a mishmash of mana sources. And we've got Thespian Stage, which has done nothing in that deck. And we've got some extra gates and stuff like that. And Llanowar Waste's good, but what about Overgrown Tomb? And so there's definitely places where there could be upgrades. And Arizona is playing just cards that are just absolute, like, Venture Forth, fun, but it hasn't really been performing. A lot of these cards that are kind of here, especially when we start to get to like Ceruli Gatekeepers, Llanowar Scout, Voyaging Satyr, not particularly good cards. And so I'm like, okay, can I replace these with stuff? And over here we have lots of good cards to put in there. So anyway, I'm going to get further into this thought process, but one of the first questions I wanted to see. So I'm going to start with this as the we're going to be mashing the two together. And now the commander. Here's the real question. So For the 5-color deck, the commander that I'm playing I'm playing the Friends Forever, Cecily Haunted Mage, and Othlam Sigardian Outcast, also known as these are the Stranger Things versus Universes Within. Cecily is 11, and I do not remember who Othlam is for the life of me because I did not get the original. I have the Universes Within here, and then for Maze's End, my commander is Garth One-Eye. And I'm not sure who I want the commander to be. They both have their upsides and downsides. The upside with Garth is he is kind of an everything you could want from a commander. He's removal, he's card draw, he's a threat, he's ramp. All these good things. He has 5 mana, and you do have to untap with him. which is the one issue sort of with him, which isn't that big of an issue, but it's something to think about. It's definitely something to think about. Over here, Othlam and Cecily. These are the story of two opposites. So with Garth, there's some small synergies within the deck that have been cool, and for example, with Baldur's Gate, him being able to access Brain Geyser and draw a bunch of cards is super awesome interaction. And little stuff like that. But he's mostly just a utility, and he kind of fills in that role of being extra utility for a deck that's very, very focused on a certain endpoint. Cecily and Othlam is a story of ups and downs. Cecily is freaking amazing. This commander is so cool. I've really enjoyed kind of being able to attack with her and draw cards. She draws a ton of cards. Upping your maximum hand size to 11 is actually surprisingly relevant with this deck. And then I still want to every once in a while be able to cast big instants and sorceries, because there's a lot of big instants and sorceries in the deck. Just kind of these really cool draw engine. Othlam, on the other hand, has been really disappointing. He's done almost nothing in this deck, and the big reason for that is we don't have any sacrifice outlets. We're not a sacrifice outlet deck, and so I imagined him as being kind of a protection card, a way to protect other cards. But it's 2 mana to bring the creature back, and it's not it's retroactive. How do I describe this? His issue is that he doesn't put like a protective bubble on the card. He brings the card back after they've already died. So it's kind of like you always have to hold up that 2 mana, and then if there's a board wipe, it didn't matter. Which this deck is not susceptible to board wipes, but it's definitely notable that sometimes this deck is going to be like, wait a minute. So there's a couple positions where he's alright. He's not completely worthless. He's 3 mana, but he's like kind of on the sidelines commander, and Cecily does a lot of the work, I've noticed. I'm kind of leaning towards these two, but Garth would definitely be going in the deck because I just love Garth so much. And my reasoning behind this is, one, I haven't seen anyone else playing these two, which I think is a shame because they're cool. And although I really haven't seen that many Garths either, but I think the other thing is kind of the speed of Garth. Garth is 5 mana, and by the time I get to 5 mana, I'm wanting to be doing a lot more than Garthing. So that's my thought process behind them. So I'm going to I do get 1 less card in the actual deck with Cecily and Othlam. But that's okay. That's okay. Othlam, Sigardian Priest. Alright, for visual grid, yeah, there we go. So, okay, so you're going to be able to see the cards up in that corner. I'm wondering if I can do... I'm wondering if there's a way for me to do, like, wait, no, this one. I'm going to try and find a way to... Is there a way possibly to just get a tiny portion of this? I'm I'm just going to hide that. I think there probably is at some point, but I'm not going to mess with it right now. I don't want to mess with it right now. Anyway, so we got Cecily, Haunted Mage, and Othlam, our good friend Othlam here, and so these are the people we're going to be building with, and the first thing that I want to go through is there are cards in this deck that are shared between the decks. So I probably should have, organized this ahead of time. But if we take a look at the two, a big one is I have this package of these cards. So Eureka Moment. Oh, come on. We've got Eureka Moment. We've got where is it? We've got Urban Evolution. And so these two are indicative of this collection of cards that are these two cards are in both decks, and it's this group of cards that I've really started locking. Hello, how's it going? We're just doing some 5-color deck building. I'm going to be doing I'm going to be doing other deck building, but I'm starting off with I'm combining a Maze's End and 5-color. I'm combining a 5-color good stuff deck. I'm doing well. Glad to hear that you're doing well as well. I'm starting out today. We're taking a 5-color good stuff deck and a Maze's End deck, and we're combining them basically. And I've got the blueprints. In fact, I own all the cards in paper, and these are two decks I own in paper. And I was like, okay, how do I combine these two? I've got like a 20. I ranted about this for 22 minutes before you got here. So long explanation, but we're starting here with Urban Evolution and Eureka Moment. And these two cards, I've really been liking these cards in decks like this. I've just kind of fallen in love with them because they're both ramp and card draw. And if you're okay with going a little bit slower, which this deck 100% is, then there's literally very little downside. I've fallen in love with 4 or 5 mana draw 3 cards recently in Commander because I just want more cards, and these cards do that and ramp. And so they're not our dedicated card draw or our dedicated ramp package, but they do serve both purposes within this deck. So they're going to be coming over. And so I'm just going to be kind of taking them off. And in that same collection of cards that do this package, this kind of the Simic package, is the lands deck has Uro in it. The lands deck has Uro, Titans of Nature's Wrath. This card's ridiculous. This card is just ridiculous. And so that's from the Maze's End deck. So that's going to be part of the package as well. And another part of the package is, I believe it's within 5-color. The 5-color deck has in it. Where is it? Oh, here's creatures. It has Coiling Oracle, which is another one of these Simic card draw ramp cards. So this is another. Did I spell? Okay, I didn't spell either of them wrong. Okay, so yeah, so this is going to be a big core part of the package of just, well, it's not a core, but it is a package that we're going to be playing around with and helping our deck move. And the big question, this is beginning to approach the big question, is what do I do with the ramp in this deck? Because I'm dealing with two very different, with the exception of this Simic card draw and more lands package. These decks have very different ramp packages. So the 5-color good stuff deck, which you can see over on, it's my left. I think it's your left. Yeah, it's also going to be your left. what we have is we've got Farseek. We have Nature's Lore. We have Kadama's Reach. We have 3 Visits. We have, we've got, where is Sky Shroud Claim? And these cards, their main purpose is to search up non-basic lands with land types like our Triomes and our Shocklands, and the 5-color deck is very, very, very built towards getting out Shocks and Triomes and dealing with a $500 mana base, which is what this deck is. The Maze's End deck is completely different because we are dealing with gates. And so we have none of those. We have no Farseeks, we have no Kadama's Reaches, none of that. Instead, this RAM package is built entirely around cards like Explore and cards like Tempt with Discovery and Hour of Promise and Venture Forth, and as well as the 2 big powerhouses within this side is Circuitous Route, which searches up two gates, and which one is the one from? Is it not Venture Forth? Oh, Explore the Underdark, which gets us 2 gates and gives us the initiative. Although initiative honestly hurts us in this deck because we don't have creatures to retake it, and so we have this kind of more expensive but very ramp package, but that gets us all these utility like Gond Gate and all that stuff. And so what do I do when I'm combining the 2 mana bases? Because the Farseeks and Cultivates get the land type, the Shocklands and the Triomes, but they're not getting the Guild Gates. They can't get the Guild Gates, and the Guild Gates are very important. But the Circuitous Route is in its own is going to be struggling to get the Shocklands and stuff like that. So that's the big question I've been kind of wrestling with, and I think is like one of the halves. So the question is, to what extent is this deck going to be based around gates? How many of the gates are we going to be playing? There are 21 gates in the game of Magic the Gathering now, because Wizards of the Coast forgot that Maze's End is a card. And that's an absurd number, but are we going to be playing 21 non-basic enters the battlefield tap lands? How good is that are we really going to replacing Breeding Pool with Simic Guildgate? Is that a world I'm living in? And I don't want to. But I guess, thanks for the follow, Storm. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you're enjoying the stream. I hope that this deck building is worth it as I ramble on and on and on. Literally, this is the stuff that just goes in my head all day I'm at work, and I'm just like, yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's this is just the stuff that goes ahead in my head. And I'm just trying, and so I'm like, well, why not? Oh, thank you. I'm so happy. Yeah, no, absolutely. If you just wanna, I can talk about all sorts of stuff. Like right now, I'm talking about Magic the Gathering. That's what I'm doing. But I think there's a lot that gets into it. Like this deck in particular, like I'm talking about Magic the Gathering strategy and all that stuff. But this is ultimately, if I wanted to build the best Magic the Gathering deck, I wouldn't be dealing with this. That's the thing. The best Magic the Gathering deck is like, here's the deck that I'm building here, and it's all the way over there. That's the best one. I'm just dealing with something from my childhood. So and I'm a storyteller. I'm a person that kind of just likes going on and on and on about past events, and now of course you've got me rambling about this and that, and I was talking about gates and stuff, and I don't know where I'm at anymore. But going back to but yeah, I appreciate it nonetheless. I appreciate it. I appreciate it big time. But yeah, so rambles are the best. Rambles are absolutely the best, and it's good. There's a good part of getting it out of your head and into the real world. Not even getting it into kind of the this is something that I've learned a lot over the last couple years, is the importance of, especially since I'm very heady. I'm very cerebral to my detriment. And I will be walking myself in circles with conversations in my head, just round and round and round about this, that, and where my life is at and where my life isn't at and stuff like that. And being able to just say it out loud just helps a lot, of just kind of going through the mental space. If I'm no longer, and I'm already a person that kind of wanders in conversation, personal conversation, but doing it with a purpose, even if it's, on a stream or something like that, adding directionality to it. There's a great story that I had an amazing computer science teacher in college by the name of Jamie Spacco. Absolute gem of a man. I need to get back to him. They really are. They really are a good way to kind of just ramble, and just get yourself out there, and just get yourself out there and be heard. And I think that's something I want to return to with streaming and all that stuff. But Jamie Spacco has this great story of, I don't know where he got it from in particular, but maybe it was a company he worked at, or it was somebody he had talked to who was from a company that had this. But the manager of the company, or at least on the computer science side, was like a computer program manager. And if someone came in asking for help on a project, like let's say they found some bug and they just needed to find some kind of a solution, the manager had this little rubber duck with him, and he put it on his desk. And if someone came in for a problem, the manager would first ask them, the people with the problem, to tell their problem to the duck. Not to him, to the duck first. And about 50% of the time, them just talking through their problem, even if it was just to a duck, like a rubber duck that had no answers, them talking about the problem and getting out of their head, 50% of the time, they were able to find the solution just by talking through it. They didn't even need to, there was no aspect of it that was just, and of course then the other 50% of the time they would be like, I'm just completely stuck, and then the manager would step in. But he, by doing that, decreased his workload by 50% by using a rubber duck. It's so cool. It's so cool, and it really speaks to the kind of the mentality of people, of just getting out of your head. Yeah, exactly. You just kind of getting people out of their heads and into the space. And then he saved time. And that he could spend on other things. And the duck got a lot of people talking to it. So ultimately, no matter what the result is, no matter what the context and any of that, just getting out of my head is important. And so that's what my goal is. And via me talking about Magic the Gathering and Commander. So, who knows what it'll lead to? This is just something that I was going to be doing today anyway. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Much love and appreciation. You're no offense, but you are the duck today. All right. Sweet. Thank you so much. Good luck with everything you have to do today. And I appreciate it. So, cheers. Hope it goes well. But anyway, before that wonderful conversation, I was talking about converting, cheers! Ducks. Okay. One more story before we get on to shocklands and mana bases. I love this story. So there is a stand-up comedian, I'm forgetting his name, but if you look up the story of We Have to Talk About the Ducks, if you look it up online, you will find this skit. And I love this skit. Basically, the skit is the stand-up comedian, he's an Englishman, and he has a new roommate in somewhere in England. I'm not remembering exactly what the town is. I don't think he even mentioned it, but he has a new roommate, or a flatmate as he calls them. And he has some rubber ducks. and he keeps leaving them out, and his roommate tells him, hey, could you please put the ducks away? Or I forget exactly how it started, but he came up with this brilliant idea. He found rubber ducks online for like 100 for nothing. Like $5 for 100 rubber ducks, and got like 5 of these bags. And he started just putting these ducks all over their apartment. In the bathroom, playing out scenes, doing like all sorts of stuff. It's a really, really funny bit. And then it ends with his flatmate being like, dude, please, we have to talk about the ducks. There are hundreds in the bathtub. I cannot get into the bathroom. I have someone coming over. Could you please put them away? And he's like, can I please have just one duck? And I'm like, sure, fine, one duck. And he gets this gigantic, like 6 foot tall inflatable duck and fills the entire bathroom with it. And it's so funny. Anyway, that in context, I watched that, and a bunch of my friends and I in college wanted to do the duck thing. So we were in a shared suite with a group of people. And we wanted to, basically, the idea was for the entirety of March, on March 1st, we put one duck out into the suite. Just put one duck. And over the course of March, we put more and more ducks out, doing more and more things, and the entire suite started losing their minds. Where are these ducks coming from? What is going on? Why are there so many ducks? And it was the funniest thing in the world, because we're all denying it. We're all denying it. Like, I don't know where the ducks are. I don't know why there's 20 ducks out. And then it got funnier because suddenly ducks started coming out that we, the group that was performing them, had never seen before. And we're like, where are these ducks coming from? And other people picked up on it and started putting their own ducks out. And then, of course, on April 1st, April Fool's Day, we had a giant swimming pool full. It was a giant swimming pool. It was a kiddie pool. It was like kiddie pool, but we filled it with ducks, and it was great. And we had Duck Thulu, which was a duck in the shape of an octopus. It was great. Good memories. But anyway, Magic the Gathering, converting gates and shock lands into 1 mana base. Give me a second, I need to get some water. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, to what extent do I want to bring these 2 mana bases together? On the one hand, we have Maze's End, which is our wing condition. Well, not our main wing condition, but it's a wing condition, and it's going to be there. And it's going to be something that we're going to be working with and wanting to put into the deck. If we just wanted to have a mana base, if we want to have the perfect mana base, just use the 5-color deck. We're not here to have the perfect mana base. We're here to do some fun. And so the question from that point becomes, okay, to what extent then do we water down our mana base with the cards that are gates and all that good stuff? To what extent? To what extent? And the other difficult thing that we're dealing with is, if you take a look over the decks over here, the Maze's End deck is playing a lot of gates on purpose. It's not just a lot of gates, a lot of lands on purpose. It is attempting, in its own right, to be a lands deck. It's the Sebastiano style lands deck, which means that it has too many lands. It has just what is like most. I guess it's a little. Basically, the Sebastiano question is: if I'm playing lands deck, why not play all the lands? And so I play all the lands. I had another lands deck that was a Gitrog monster deck, and that literally had 50 lands in it, which is a lot of lands. That's half the deck. And is that too many lands? Yes. Do I care? No. So the question that is being then asked, therefore, and going back to the 5-color deck, this one plays 37. Which is more typical. It's one more than typical. I would say 36, and the reason it plays that one more is because it has, expensive spells, and it wants a lot of lands. But I've definitely found myself with it getting flooded a lot, which is one of the things I'm trying to deal with. And 37 to 45, we're cutting about 9 lands from this deck in total, which is going to be making things a bit more difficult. So the question is, how do we put these two mana bases together? And what I'm kind of looking for out of this is where can we kind of add and subtract lands usefully without destroying the character of the deck. And the first place I want to take a look at is the gates. Because the only reason we're even touching this deck is because of the gates. How many of the gates do we want to play? And again, I think there's 21 gates now. But I'm just going to kind of pull the gates up. And that's going to be Baldur's Gate, Azorius Gate, Boros, Dimir, Gateway Plaza, Golgari, Gruul, Izzet, Orzhov, Rakdos, Selesnya, Simic. Those are all the guild gates. And then we've also got Gond Gate, and we've also got Heap Gate, and we've also got Manor Gate, Cliff Gate, Sandstep Citadel. We've got so many gates. But, and Maze's End. So I'm actually just going to start here. Maze's End. Because this we have to put this in the deck. This is the reason why we are building this deck. And Maze's End is going to need to be supported by at least 10 gates in order for it to be a viable win condition. And we're going to be attempting to put as many gates in addition to those, because we don't want people destroying our extra gates or exiling our extra gates, or gates getting lost in the shuffle or something like that. But the question is, how many more than 10 are we going to want to be playing? With a combination of just nostalgia, and because they're the originals and all that, we're going to be wanting to play the all original 10 guild gates. So I'm going to just copy. Oh, wait. No, that was not the word. Guild gate. Copy. There we go. So Azorius Guild Gate. Boros Guild Gate. Dimir Guild Gate. Golgari Guild Gate. Gruul Guild Gate. Izzet Guild Gate. Orzhov Guild Gate. Rakdos Guild Gate. Selesnya Guild Gate. And of course, Simic Guild Gate. We are going to be running all of these. And that's just a given. They're nice because they are dual lands. One of the nice things is that they are dual lands, so they do fix mana. Their issue is that they're slow. And this is going to then bring us to by far the best of the gates. The new from Baldur's Gate, Gond Gate. This card's absurd. This card is absurd. It makes sure that all of our gates enter untapped. And because all of our gates enter untapped, we are able to just, the downside of the gates, which is that they enter tapped, is eliminated. It's gone. We don't have to worry about it. And that is absolutely absurd. And then, dealing with the rest of the gates, another good utility gate we have is Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate isn't... how did I spell that? Oh, it's Baldur's Gate. I'm not very good at spelling. So, you're just going to have to deal with that. I apologize in advance, but anyway. Baldur's Gate, quite good. Is able to ramp... It does have some issues in that it only adds one color when this deck is going to be very greedy with its colors. We're going to be wanting to have a bunch of different colors. And so it does suffer in that degree, but the fact that it can turn 2 mana into more than 2 mana, more mana is a good thing. And it's another gate, and so it's really playing into that. And so then the question is, how many... So that brings us up to 12 gates. You got 12 gates. How many of the other gates do we really want to deal with? How many do we want to deal with? And this is, I think, where we're going to start to see our first cut. Basilisk Gate is colorless, mono-colorless, and we really cannot play that many colorless lands within this deck. It's going to be difficult for us to fit in any colorless lands. And we're already going to be attempting to put in another very good land from the deck, Field of the Dead. Which is just going to be is another win condition for our mana base. Field of the Dead is just a devastating card, and we're not going to have any duplicates of lands. But we're playing a lot of really big, expensive, mana-intensive cards, and so there is no saving grace to ball. Okay, so Basilisk Gate, it's colorless. It does come in untapped, but it's colorless, and its ability, if we're just playing guild gates for the sake of having a win condition, we're not going to be... A lot of the gate synergy cards from the actual deck itself are not going to be, porting over. And so, hey, thank you, Multi-Life. I appreciate it. Welcome to the stream. I hope you're enjoying. Yeah, so because we're not a lot of the gate synergies in and of themselves, those being the kind of the cards that are like, hey, we've got these gates. They in and of themselves are not going to be coming over because a lot of them are like, we're going to be playing like cards like Cerulean Gatekeepers. We're not going to be playing because 4 mana gain 7 life. We have access to every color of Magic the Gathering. We have better cards. We're going to be playing better cards. So because of that, Basilisk Gate, unfortunately, since we're not as desperate to get every gate into the deck as we are just to get having gates in our deck, I think Basilisk Gate is definitely going to be getting cut because of that purpose. And I think that's kind of showing us where the line is between gates that make it and gates that don't. If the gate does not provide mana fixing or an important utility in and of that same sphere, then that's definitely going to be something we're going to be wanting to take a look at when it comes to stuff we're going to be looking for cuts. So Basilisk Gate, and in a similar vein, Heap Gate. We're going to be cutting those decks, those two from the deck, because they just don't quite provide us enough. One gate that I've been kind of wondering about a lot is Gateway Plaza. Gateway Plaza is on one end the worst of the gates, and on another end the best of the gates. Its benefit is that it can tap for any color of mana. That's really good. We have all the colors of mana available with it. The bad news with playing... the problem is it enters tapped, and it requires mana to keep it around, which is a lot for a land. And I think while we're here with, okay, how much for these lands, there are a couple other lands that just obviously make it in. Command Tower is in both decks and is just amazing. Command Tower. So that's just, the old meme is that you're really building there. Did that add? Hello? I'm not sure if it added. Come on. There we go. Alright, so Command Tower is in. That's just an obvious inclusion. That's one that's just... It's Command Tower. Come on. We've also got, behind Command Tower, the second best, land for this category of just multicolored lands that are very, very economical. And I have a ton of Exotic Orchard. This, in addition to the fact that Wizards of the Coast have printed this in pretty much every single non-monocolored Commander deck for like the last 5 years, and thank goodness, because this card's actually really good. And if for 5 color, sometimes it doesn't tap for all of our colors. Sometimes there are players who aren't playing this or that color, but it's an untapped land that taps for some colors, or most of them, unless you're playing mono colorless, in which case, well, I'm sorry. I hope you like Eldrazi. So, yeah. Exotic Orchard is in the deck. And that's just going to be another easy kind of crossover between the two decks. But we're at 12 gates, and the question is, what other gates are we going to be wanting to play? What other gates do we want to play? And I don't know if there's a really easy answer to this question. I'm going to just kind of, and I want to try. I'm going to do an experiment. And I'm going to include all of the remaining, or some of the remaining gates. So Gateway Plaza is in. I'm going to risk a Gateway Plaza because once it comes out, it's really good. And then I'm going to include, I only have 4 of the 5, because of the remaining gates from Baldur's Gate, they are enter the battlefield tapped, tap for a color, and then you choose a second color. And of the remaining ones, I'm going to want to put the 4 that I have in here. And I think I would want to put in the 5th one, but I just currently don't have it. And I'm not dealing with cards I don't own with this. If I could, I would put a million different cards into the deck. But, you know, I'm just going to be kind of just dealing with cards that I own first. And it's going to be making this a little bit easier as we go forward. So Citadel Gate. These are all $2. Holy cow. This is what happens when when you print a bunch of gates. Anyway, so now what we have is we have 19 lands. And if we just add one more to make it even 20, which is going to be the amazing Plaza of Harmony, which isn't a gate, but it synergizes very well with gates. It gains its life. It produces any color that any... am I muted? Am I muted? I hope I'm not muted. Hello? Can you hear me? Is your volume up? You can't hear me. Uh-oh. I'm pretty sure I'm not muted. Let me do a sound test. Let me do a sound test over on my end. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Multi-Life. So some people can hear me, some people can't. Hello. Yeah, okay, I can hear me. Although that's not that hard to say. Hopefully you get that. That's on your end. Oh, there we go. Hey, glad to have you here. Oh, that's so weird. Glad to have you. I decided I'm doing a stream. What's the year? Is the year 2022? 2021? But yeah, I'm doing a stream and I am talking in depth about the conversion. Yeah, it's 2022. I am talking about the conversion of a... Not yet. Yep. Oh my goodness. Who knows? It's welcome to the year 1985. Good. Well, welcome to the year 1985. Reagan is president, and I don't know what else is going on in 1985. 80s things. The pandemic. With the pandemic, there is no such thing as time. Time is an anomaly. Time is a myth, it for people that live outside. And no, that's not for the endless bounds of Twitch. That is not something we have to worry about. Anyway, welcome, Phoenix. I hope you're doing well. You and Multi and everybody. I hope you guys are all doing well and enjoying my conversation of basically Spacio had things going through his head and wants to put them out into the world. Good. Why is there a black dragon in my deck? Yeah, thanks. Good to see you as well. I've been doing things. Oh, cheers. Yeah. Sorry to hear that. I've been busy, and it's been lots of stuff has been happening. It's been busy and complicated, and yeah, had to but you know, anyway, it's chaotic. Yeah, thank you. Glad you guys are alive too. This Black Dragon shouldn't be here. Where's Black Dragon Gate? Did I put Black Dragon Gate in here? Chaos is the spice of life. Yeah, chaos is crazy. And you know, I don't know. I've just kind of been drifting in and out of stuff, but I need to there's a lot of people I need to follow up with. And a lot of things I need to follow up with, and doing a stream, I think, at least at this point in time, is a good follow-up to reconnecting with a lot of stuff. A lot of old passions and stuff like that. Yeah, because I've been wanting to do content creation for a while. I have a YouTube channel that I made a bunch of shorts for around the beginning of last year, around the time I did my last stream. And, like, originally they were TikToks, and I put them over to YouTube. And I found out that TikTok, if you don't post or interact with it in a certain amount of time, they just delete your account. Which is... So I lost all the stuff I did with that TikTok account, which is okay. I never used it for anything besides trying to post stuff. And a glorified editor, but the YouTube side is still up and still doing strong. I'm like, I wonder if there was something I was doing that was right. That's the question. That's the But anyway, so I was going into. I hope you guys can stand my going into Magic the Gathering rants, because basically I'm just going into my brain, and I don't think I actually put over Black Dragon Gate. Did I? No, I didn't. Black Dragon Gate. There we go. That puts me up to 21 lands. Which makes the math a little bit harder, but that's okay. Yeah, so we have 21 lands, and we're aiming for 37, 36, which gives us access to 16 lands? 16 non-gate lands? Which I'm going to be mostly pulling from the old pile. Because if we take a look at the gates from the gate lands, most of these are either in the other deck or not good. And so the question is, which ones are we going to be bringing over and all that stuff? And importantly, when it comes over to the 5-color greed, which of these lands are we taking out for lands in the other category? So, how many basic land typed lands can I bring over is a question I'm going to be asking myself. We've got about 16 or so. And I've got the cards in front of me to do some, like, physical thinking as well. So how many of these? So I've got 21 lands from this. How many of these? What would that look like? Cutting, I guess, 16. So we do the triomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Oh, World Tree. Oh, and a couple of these actually do. That's right. At least 2 of these are fine. So it's really like 35? Okay, 35 cutting 21, maybe? Anyway, so just pulling out Triomes. Path of Ancestry. Command Tower, definitely don't need to worry about that. And another land that is in both of the decks, that's this utility land, is Bojuka Bog, as like Graveyard Hate. Oh, how do I... Oh, I put an extra L. Bojuka. Yeah, here we go. Bojuka Bog, which is that's one particular color of land, which we can't have too many more of those. But this one that's in both of the decks, because Graveyard Hate is important, kids. Remember to make sure that you can deal with your opponent's graveyards. Anyway, and another important land that I'm going to be kind of bringing over without discussion is going to be the World Tree. This is going to be serving a couple different purposes within this deck. Why aren't some of these, when I type them out, going through? The World Tree. So, what the World Tree does is it completely fixes our mana. We get that out. We don't have to deal with mana issues for the entire rest of the game. And if we're in position, it was one of the few lands-only things the deck could do, we could search out some gods to get some engines rolling. And we do have some gods in this deck. Not a lot, but it is something we can do. I'm going through the 5-color deck now, and I'm going to try and see how many of the Triomes there are, and how many of the Shock lands there are, because I want to try and bring over as much of the Triome Shock package as I can, in order to make sure that we still have, a mana base, even though it's not going to be the main focus. It's the fast end of the mana base. So, when we come to Triomes, we have stuff like, we've got Indatha Triome, Ketria Triome, Zaggoth Triome, Xander's Lounge, the Nuka-Penna Gangster Hangouts are Triomes. So we've got those as well, and Spar's Headquarters. And so between all of these, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The ones that we're missing is we are missing Rafine's Tower, which is Jetmir's Garden, which are each in decks of those respective colors. And when it comes to Triomes, are we missing any of the Triomes? We actually have all 5 Triomes. So the other one we're missing then is, the only Triome I don't own at all, which is Ziatora's Ring, the Jund one. So those are the ones that we're going to be, and again, I'm not putting in any cards I don't physically own with this. This is a deck that I'm kind of running with. So with this in mind, we're going to be putting in 7 Triomes, or attempting to put in 7 Triomes, and attempting to put in how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Shock lands. So 7 Shock lands, 7 Triomes, that's 14. And then we're instantly running into the issue that we had earlier of the fact of the matter that then that's 14, and 14 plus 23 is equal to 37, and that's all of the land slots that we have, and that's all the land slots we had, and we have no basics, and our mana base is really slow, which is difficult to deal with. So this is where we're going to need to start making some cuts, and we're going to need to start putting in some basics. And one of the big cuts, and this is something I kind of went into the deck knowing, is I am going to be cutting a lot. In fact, I'm going to be cutting I'm debating cutting fetch lands, because we are now less dependent on multi-land type lands. Do I cut the fetches, or do I cut like a Baldur's Gate, or what do I cut? One thing I definitely want is I want and this is going to be a question that is answered in to what extent do I rely on land type based ramp spells like Farseek, like one thing I definitely wanted to cut was Cultivate. We don't need the basic ramp. And so our basic count is going to be lower, but I don't want it to be 0 either. Basics, play your basics, folks. Play your basics. But that aside, the question is, to what extent do I play them? And one thing I was kind of thinking of was playing low ramp that's land-based. So kind of playing Farseek, Cultivate, no, not Cultivate, Farseek, Nature's Lore. So the low ramp, the early ramp spells are based off of grabbing land types, while the higher end ramp spells are based around getting the utility gates, getting out Gone Gate and stuff like that. And it's in this time, so I'm going to quickly also, this is a card, ironically, not as universal as you might expect out of this deck, this deck combination. Sol Ring is present in the 5-color deck. I do not believe it's in my Maze's End deck. No, it's not. I don't play it in my Maze's End deck because the idea is I have so many lands. I usually put Sol Ring in the first non-land, but I usually count it not as a land per se, but as a land. It fills the role of a land in a lot of my decks. And that's, so when I'm building decks, that's usually the slot I put it into. Does it make it into most decks? 100%. But it doesn't make it into all of my decks. And I will probably get people saying, Sebastiano, why? Why wouldn't you put it in all of your decks? It's Sol Ring. It's 1 mana, gives you 2 mana. And the decks I don't put it in is this very niche. If I'm playing a lands deck, I want to put more lands in, and Sol Ring isn't a land. If it's like very specifically mono, I have a mono green deck that doesn't play it because it's a mono green devotion deck that has a ton of green pips, and so Sol Ring sometimes just doesn't ramp me. It just doesn't ramp me anywhere useful, and so I replace it with elves like Llanowar elves and stuff like that, and just focus on playing those instead. And are there any other decks? No, those are basically the 2 places I haven't played it. Is either the deck is like monocolored, super pip heavy, and it had a bunch of ramp already, or it was lands based, and I already had like 5 or 6 different lands within the deck. And I was like, okay, there's just a ton of lands in this deck. I don't need another mana source because I'm not struggling with mana. So that's where Sol Ring kind of comes in. But this deck, we are trying to get to some big spells, and so Sol Ring is appreciated, and that's going to be serving as our 38th land. But unfortunately, one thing Sol Ring doesn't answer is what the heck am I doing with my Shocklands and Triomes? This might be something for me to come back to later, honestly. The balancing of the Triomes and the Shocklands based upon which non-land cards, the mana spread of the non-land cards I'm going to be putting in. Right now it's looking Simic based, but I haven't put in the fun stuff yet. But let's finish this out. Let's finish this out by talking about some more ramp spells. And we've got, if we look here in our Maze's End deck, Voyaging Satyr isn't making it. Llanowar Scout isn't making it. But some things that are going to be making it, mostly these sorceries. What I was thinking of, again, low cost mana ramp is going to be based around cards like Farseek, and they're going to be based around cards that can search up land types. But our high CMC land ramp is going to be based more around trying to access utility lands and gates, trying to access our gates. And really what this is going to take is it's going to take the form of a collection of cards that I'm kind of dubbing my land fetchers. And the big one here is, let me remove these from my keyboard, Circuitous Route. Where are you? Right here. Circuitous Route is really good. In this deck, particularly. It can get us 2 gates, which fixes us mana just as well as... It basically takes the same spot as Skyshroud Claim in the old 5-color deck. Because in this 5-color deck, we have Skyshroud Claim, and I'm also playing Ranger's Path, which is basically worse Skyshroud Claim. And Circuitous Route is better than both of those. in this particular gate. And I'm also in this same vein. So Circuitous Rouse is replacing Sky Shroud Claim, and Ranger's Path is being replaced by Explore the Underdark, which is Explore the Underdark is also Gate Search. It is 5 mana, which is notable, but we also then get the initiative, so we also get a basic out of it, which is good reason to have a basic in our deck. So one basic that is absolutely going to be in the deck is a Forest. We need green mana. All the other mana we can search with green mana, so we are at least playing one Forest for sure. And I'm going to want to go up to 2 probably at some point. Just by the nature of what it is. But I'm going to be wanting to play a Forest in this deck. And also, if I do play a second Forest, that Forest is most likely going to be a Snowcard Forest because we have Field of the Dead. Okay, here we go. I've got a bunch of tape tiles on my actual paper because I'm building this digitally and in paper at the same time. Again, 2 decks I actually own. But anyway, I digress. So now where are we? We're 33 cards in, but most of them are lands, which is good. But we are facing a crisis of infinite lands. And we're going to be and like all good European leaders, we're going to be punting the problem of that to the future. We're focusing right now on ramp. And going back into a ramp, there is one spell that I'm very happy to be playing in this deck, which I'm putting in the ramp column, despite the fact that it has other utility, and that's Wargate. Wargate is basically replacing Kadama's Reach in this deck. Because Wargate, for searching up one less land, if you play X is 0, you will get a land of any land that you want. Which is awesome. And then in the late game, if you don't need a land, you can pay more into it and then search up anything. So Wargate is 100% going to this deck. It is a ramp spell, and late game can be used for other things. And we're also going to be putting in, and then I'm debating, because how many of these do I have? I've got 1, 2, I need to put in the low CMC Farseek. That is not how you spell Farseek. So, it's also not how you play Farseek. That's Faseek. What was the word I spelled earlier? Yeah, you. Into deck. Where are you? Oh, okay, here we go. So Farseek's in the deck. Nature's Lore is going to be in the deck. And, what's the third one? Farseek, Nature's Lore, and 3 Wishes. 3 Visits. And this is going to be kind of our more immediate... Why is 3 Visits $8? What is the Magic the Gathering economy? Absolute madness. Absolute madness. So I'm just going through... Okay. And another spell that goes into ramp. Oh, thank you, Phoenix. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. What bots were in my channel? They didn't even announce anything. What are these bots doing? Where are you finding all these bots? Whoa. Where are you finding all these bots from? Holy cow. Anyway, I appreciate it so much because I was not paying attention to those. Pikachu Star, are you ready? Are you ready to see some madness? Bully those bots. Bully those bots. I am dying in mana bases. And I have done what all good European leaders have done. And I've kicked the problem of trying to put the full mana base together down the line, and I'm talking about ramp spells. I'm talking about ramp spells right now. But thank you, Phoenix. I appreciate you making sure that the bots are gone. Just be careful not to do any real people. We don't want to ban real people. So, anyway, one card that is ridiculous in this deck that goes into the ramp package is Fabral Elder. This gives us this card gets bigger with the number of colors we have among permanents we control. It itself counts as 2, but the amazing curve is what you do is you go Fabral Elder on 3 into our commander Cecily on 4, and then we can tap Fabral Elder for 5 mana. Oh, nice. Nice, Phoenix. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Got the listen. You got your listen. You're checking it twice, making sure who's a bot and who's a human being, and giving cold to the bots. Okay, the analogy has fallen apart, but the spirit is still there. Spirit is still there. But yeah, so what we're dealing with here is okay. So now, what does a ramp package look like? We got 1. Yeah, Roko's Basilisk is rolling over in its future grave. Roko's Basilisk, I apologize in advance. These bots are not conscious. They are the subversive utilizations of other human beings for... Oh, honestly, I have no idea. There's a lot. Where are you getting this list of folks? Anyway, I digress. We are moving on to... We're currently in ramp. We've got 1. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dedicated ramp cards currently within the deck, and I want a few more, and we'll come back to more. There's going to be more in due time. I'm trying to look through my Maze's End deck right now and see what other, good ramp spells. And one thing I want, the Maze's End deck has a ton of you get additional lands into play. You get additional land drops. And one thing that I am going to be avoiding is moving too many of these. And I want to express the difference between an Uro, which allows you to put an additional land into play. And if you take a look at Maze's End, we have Azusa Lost But Seeking. Where are you? Right here. I want people have sites that set up that track bots, and I just use that. Awesome. Thank you. That's a good resource. I'm going to take a look at that after the stream. But thank you. I appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So I'm avoiding cards like Azusa Lost But Seeking, because even though Azusa is very good, she does not play into the themes that this deck is looking for, and stuff like that. In that we don't need as many additional land drops, because again, the Maze's End deck, its whole purpose was to get lands from the hand into play. That was its entire goal. 5-color deck doesn't have that thing, and we're playing the mixture between the two of them. So if we have cards like Uro that put additional lands in, that's great. We don't need to depend on them, though. So instead, I'm going to be looking through the 5-color deck and seeing what some good ramp things are. That being said, from the 5-color end, some other cheap mana that I'm going to be cutting is I'm going to be cutting Arcane Signet, and I'm going to be cutting Secure Tribe Elder. Secure Tribe Elder, because I don't know what our basic count is going to look like. It's probably going to be on the lower end. And Arcane Signet, because it was already... It's a good card, but it's already a little bit out of place, and it's not... That one is a little bit on the tougher end. It might be something I might want to bring back, but we'll see. We'll see. Right now, I'm not quite stressing out over its loss, but who knows? I might be. But we'll have to get to that point. All right. But a card that is very good in this deck, and this one is... I'm also going to be trying to utilize a new mindset I've been having, which is kind of the multi-pronged ramp package set up. So I have the dedicated ramp package setup, which includes these cards that will ramp and do nothing else. And then I have cards like Widespread Thieving. Widespread Thieving is not a ramp spell in the context of which it's going to be giving us more mana or like getting us from a point to another point. But what Widespread Thieving does, especially since this deck plays so many multicolored cards, is it does such an amazing job of just giving us so many treasure tokens, of just all. It basically is a cost reducer for all of our multicolored cards, which we already have a lot, and we're going to have a lot more, which is really awesome. It is. I have played with this card. This card is busted. This card's incredibly busted. Oh, and we also can Hideaway. That's also text on the card, I guess. I once had a game where I had a Lightning Greaves under this for the entire game, did nothing, and the card was amazing. I didn't even use the Hideaway effect. So that's going to be another fantastic card that we're going to be utilizing. In kind of a ramp package, but a sort of a different ramp package. A couple other cards that I'm going to be pulling up. Yeah, that game was absurd. That game was absurd, and Widespread Thieving was amazing. This is why we play Widespread Thieving in our decks. Another pair of cards that we are going to be... I cannot spell anything. Tome the Guild Pact. This card technically ramps, but I'm definitely putting this more into the card draw category, because it just draws a card for every single spell we cast. Every single multicolored spell we cast, this card is drawing us cards. And it is so good. It is just as good because we're playing a lot of multicolored spells. And we're going to be playing a lot of multicolored spells. And then kind of rounding out that package. This one technically exists within our... removal suite. Which is heavily bloated and something I'm going to be having to look at. But this is Binding of the Old Gods. And this card is removal and ramp at the same time, which is absurd. This is an absurd card. Absolutely absurd. So, definitely something that we're going to be looking into playing, because, and it's another point that's pushing us towards lands with basic land types, because it's looking for a forest. So, that's another thing for us to consider. On the other end, two cards that I'm debating is Hour of Promise and Temperate Discovery on the high end. They are both have potential. So Hour of Promise is one more mana, but always gets you 2 lands. Whereas Temperate Discovery is one less mana, but has the potential of getting you a bunch of cards. And people are usually in the games I play, people are usually tempted, in which case Temperate Discovery is absolutely disgusting. But I can see a world in which it's not good. And the question is, to what extent is 4 mana for 1 land versus 5 mana for 2 lands? And I think it just goes Temperate Discovery. I think this is a deck that's willing to pay 4 mana for 1 land. Because it's any land. It's any land we need. And what are the lands that we're going to be dealing with? Temperate Discovery is going to be a big one. That's not a land. What am I saying? Maze's End. The card's Maze's End. Field of the Dead. Whatever land we're missing. Gond Gate. World Tree. Something like, there are so many disgusting, powerful lands that we need to get. And we're fine paying this. And then... But of course, then Hour of Promise. Why not Hour of Promise? Well, because there is the chance then, if people allow you to search up more than one, then you just win the video game. And in this case, the guard game. It is really good. And you have your mana set for the rest of the game. And that is just the world that you live in. And this actually... Ironically, Temperate Discovery. So now we have 1, 2, 3 ways, 4, 4 mana. Do we try and utilize a Prosper style mana base? It's a good question. It might be worth putting an Arcane Signet. I cut it in one end, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it. Arcane Signet, you get a second shot. And the reason for this is the fact that it's 2 mana. And I don't want to be putting in Steve. And and even though artifacts are easy to get rid of, it's not high on people's list of artifacts to get rid of. And I think Arcane Signet is going to be good at getting us, since we do have stuff like Temperate Discovery and the Eureka Moment and Circuitous Route. Arcane Signet is going to be important for us. Okay. So now, moving on from this point, is there any ramp spells? Are there any ramp spells I am missing from these for me to consider? Okay, this is one that's already been put in. From the 5-color side, I'm not seeing any. And for reminders, this is the 5-color side I've currently got up over here. I'm not seeing any. So moving on to the Maze's End side, I still have the Hour of Promise. And the Maze's End side, we've got stuff like Couriers, Briefcase, Navigation Orb, Reshape the Earth is a big one. Venture Forth, Genesis Wave, Nissa to an extent, Llanowar Scout, Azusa Lost but Seeking, Ulvenwald Hydra, AC the Tyrant to the Depths, Calls of Air Colossus, Kyrnos and Tyr of Meletus, Voyaging Satyr, Zimone, Quandrex Prodigy. We just have a list, just an absolute Urro's in the deck that just hasn't made it over yet. Wayward Swordtooth, Kyora's Follower, Oracle of Moldiah. We've got a lot. We've got a lot to consider. And right now, the ramp package, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We've got 16. Although they're in different categories. So dedicated ramp, we have 1, 2, 3... So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's a good number. Actually, that's perfect. So we don't have to, I don't feel this necessity to put more into ramp. That being said, it's stuff we can consider later. All right. Now moving on to the removal suite. And I guess the card draw removal suite. How many? We've got 1, 2, 3. This is one of the nice things I have. So the removal suites, one thing that defines both of these decks is they have a ridiculous number of removal spells. I believe I counted last night, Maze's End has 16 removal spells, and I think 5 colors at like 20 ways to get rid of things. Just an absurd number of removal spells. So I'm just going to, kind of pull out these removal spells here. And the big thing with why the removal spell suite is as big as it is due to the fact that these decks, kind of the playstyle I like I like a bunch of different playstyles, but the playstyle that these decks are enacting or being built upon are these playstyles that are very controlling, but controlling the board, not controlling the stack. Let people do whatever they want in the stack. I care, but I'm going to deal with it on the board. Fair fights on the board. Slogfest on the board. And the result of this is the decks are slow, but they're also, I don't care about slow. Having the Maze's End package, I'm imagining, will speed it up. But they can giving them the ability to answer anything on the stack is that's the main thing I'm looking for out of these. So, taking a look at our removal packages. we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, 19 in 5 color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in Maze's End. We want some sweepers. And I'm thinking about 4 sweepers. I believe the decks each play about 4 sweepers. 4 dedicated sweepers. Actually, 5 color plays 3. Maze's End plays more because Maze's End doesn't care about the actual board since its win condition is in the mana base. So that one plays a ton of sweepers. 6 sweepers. 6 is too high. 3 seems on the 3 is probably more like it because 5 color plays 3. Although, am I missing one? Yeah, but multicolor also plays a lot of multi-sweepers. I'm looking at the sweepers. In all honesty, I prefer the sweepers in the 5 color deck. The sweepers within the Maze's End deck are a lot, just aren't as, they're actually better, but they aren't as kind of like flavorful. Well, okay, so let me take a look at let me show you guys what I'm talking about here, because I'm getting lost in the sauce. Farewell, fantastic card, deals with everything, but it exiles, and this deck wants to use its graveyard and wants to use its permanents dying, whereas the Maze's End deck was just get rid of everything, and so that's why I'm going to be. We don't care as much about, if they have an answer to exiling everything. We have tons of answers. The deck is built of answers. Farewell is kind of like a 1-card catch-all. We don't care about the 1-card catch-all. We can catch-all in due time. So, yeah. Wrath of God, we have Supreme Verdict at home. And not to say Supreme Verdict is strictly better than Wrath of God. It isn't. But we already have that kind of card. We're just kind of looking for inspiration. The next one we have is Blasphemous Act. We're not going to be this. Blasphemous Act, the cool thing about Blasphemous Act is it has a cost reduction, so it costs less. That being said, I'm not as worried about the cost in this case. And mono creature removal isn't quite so much this deck's forte. Since we've got creatures, we can block. Maze's End didn't have that. And Undoing Version as a land, we don't need to get rid of everything. In fact, we want to keep some stuff even. And I think that's kind of, and I guess the other big one we have here is Child of Alara. Just sweeping everything. Again, we don't want to get rid of everything. So for the most part, I'm just going to carry over a lot of the kind of the sweeper package from, although I am wondering if I want at least one more sweeper. I'm not sure, because I have had games where they get, but we don't care if the board gets clogged up. We can outboard the board in games where the board gets clogged up. That being said, I kind of want to play one more, and I'm wondering if the one more we play is Gates Ablaze. This is the card I'm really wondering about, because Gates Ablaze is flavorful and can be quite good. It's a gate-themed card, and we do play some gates. And it can help get rid of low toughness things, and we don't mind that all too much. And so in that case, it will kind of be bolstering up a slot that we already play. So Gates Ablaze. And so far I've been talking about the Maze's End portion of this deck, but you're about to see some of the construction and thought processes behind my 5-color side here. Ruinous Ultimatum is just so good. You wipe their boards, your board is untouched. Supreme Verdict gets rid of everything, multicolored, non-counterable, destroy all creatures. This is kind of replacing the Wrath of God in our deck, and honestly, to an extent, I mean, I guess it's just as difficult to cast as Wrath of God, maybe even a little bit more, but the fact that it has synergy with cards like Tome of the Guild Pact and Widespread Thieving just makes it better in this deck. And then the final one is Fire Covenant. Fire Covenant is a fun spell. It is in the place of a mass board wipe, and I think this is the one that made me add in Gate to plays, because we were at really 2 true board wipes, and Fire Covenant being more of like a mass get rid of stuff deck. But the big reason why I want to put Fire Covenant in, and I'm going to want to keep this tech over because it's a very good card, is the true mastermind behind this is Soulfire Grandmaster. Soulfire Grandmaster is so good with Fire Covenant. It becomes 7 mana, wipe basically wipe your life totals board worth of stuff off the board every single turn. Because Soulfire Grandmaster rebuys the Fire Covenant and gives the Fire Covenant lifelink, so you don't have to deal with the massive life loss. Fire Covenant in and of itself, it's nice on its own because it's an emergency 3 mana. Oh boy, we're going down. Deal with stuff. Its big weakness though is it's both a spell you want to use in emergencies, but it's also a spell that struggles in emergencies, because if you're getting attacked with a ton of toughness and you can't deal with it, you're still screwed. It doesn't help you in that space. So, which is why I wanted to add one more sweeper. And Soulfire Grandmaster by it herself, she can work with a lot of our other spells, a lot of our utility spells. Like, can you imagine a Wardgate Soulfire Grandmaster just getting lands out of her deck repeatedly? Soulfire Grandmaster with Circuitous Route, getting lands out of her deck repeatedly. And then the rest of the cards, the Wraths from the Gates deck, I'm just cutting. Because, yeah, we don't need that many Wraths. So, now moving on to single target removal. This is really where both decks shine, is they have so much good single target removal in them. And a lot of it's going to be multicolored, and the question is not the question becomes how much single target removal do we put into this deck? So, heading over to this side, we've got stuff like, in the Maze's End deck has Assassin's Trophy, Anguished Unmaking, Void Rend, Mythos of Nethroi. These are very, very, very good removal spells that just get rid of anything. And this is a theme that's also present within the 5-color deck. Vindicate. We have, in addition to all of these, we also have, most of them, we've got Casualties of War. So there's a lot of single target removal. And I am safe putting 10 single target removal spells into this deck. But there is going to be a caveat that I'm going to be building upon here in a second. And for example, we play Abzan Charm. Abzan Charm is a removal spell. It's more limited, but it's a removal spell, but it's also a card draw spell. So it doubles in a number of different categories. And we have a couple of different spells that do fulfill this. We have Jund Charm. Technically a sweeper, also a graveyard hate. Also some other things. Although Jund Charm is on the weaker end. And this is one I am considering cutting. But that's something to think about. Utter End. Although Utter End, spoiler alert, in some of my thought process, I think is getting replaced with Anguished Unmaking from the Maze's End deck. Because Anguished Unmaking is better than it in most scenarios. So, the removal spells within this deck are either absolutely you can't deal with them, or they can deal with everything, or they have multiple different uses. And I think for the basis of this, at the basis, I am going to be starting with the absolute sort of core of the removal package. And there are other removal cards within these categories. For example, one thing in the 5-color deck we have is the Kami War. I already talked about Binding of the Old Gods, or Binding the Old Gods. That's something I need to remember. But we've also played the Kami War. in this deck, which is a threat in addition. It has a bunch of other uses in addition to being a removal spell. Yeah, so I'm going to pull out the spells that are just deal with everything in some capacity that I haven't talked about yet. And kind of go over which ones I think are good, which ones I'm a little bit more mediocre on, and stuff like that. And I think one big area is, well, the first one is the spell that is in both decks by rule. If it's in Generous Gift, Beast Within, yeah. So that is a good question. That is a good question. Those are very, very good. Since they get rid of everything. That being said, I'm not sure if we need them, because the reason why Beast Within and Generous Gift are so good is because they are monocolored, and they can be in mono green decks, mono white decks, decks that you wouldn't expect them from. We don't have that issue. We are all of the colors. So, for example, let's take a look at Mythos of Nethroi. With Mythos of Nethroi, here we go. Mythos of Nethroi. Okay, so it doesn't deal with lands like Beast Within does, and I think Generous Gift is similar. But other than that, it's the same, and with no downside. The color requirements for our deck are not a downside. We also have Void Rent, which is going to be very similar. Since we have access to all of the colors, I have never felt a need to play Generous Gift and Beast Within. The colors are not an issue for us in this deck. And them being multicolored, in fact, also helps out with stuff like Tome of the Guild Pact, with stuff like Widespread Thieving. Although, I guess Mythos of Nethroi is not multicolored, so it doesn't share that. So yeah, I think those are very good cards. I just don't think this is the deck for them. So, Mythos of Nethroi, Void Rend. We've also going to have Assassin's Trophy. And Assassin's Trophy has the downside of giving them a land. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no worries. No, it was a good suggestion. But yeah, it was a good suggestion. And I appreciate it. But we have so many Vindicate, so many 3-mana get rid of everythings in this deck. Although Vindicate is sorcery speed, so ups and downs to everything. I don't need the second Mythroi. Anguish of Making is going to be making it in. And now we're going to be getting into some of the... Utter End is not going to be making the cut. 4 mana versus 3 mana. We already have so many 3 mana removal spells. And in a similar vein, Status Stasher, which was in the 5-color deck, is not going to be making it in, since we're just kind of taking the best of the 2 decks and combining them. And then some kind of... So what what we're looking at is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 single target get rid of stuff. We've got more. Another big one, but the rest of the kind of removal package is going to be flipping into kind of more big stuff territory. This is not mass removal, because we already have a mass removal package in the form of Ruinous Ultimatum and that kind of stuff. That's for when we need the weapon board. But this is multi-target / wing condition / other stuff. So the big one here is Casualties of War, which can just get rid of everything. Or it can get rid of the most annoying of each of the types. So it can get rid of the most annoying land, artifact, creature, enchantment, planeswalker, etc. We then have Vraska, the Relic Seeker. And Vraska, her kind of big thing is she begins to kind of enter sort of... She's not a win condition, but she's a big part of this multi-purpose, and she's more on the expensive side. But again, We're not going for mass efficiency with this deck. We're going for cool points. And she can get rid of just about everything. Is she, Okay, so she's just artifact, creature, and enchantment. Again, our bases are covered, though, so we don't need to worry so much about that. We also have... This card was played against me recently, and I hadn't quite read it, and it's disgusting, so I had to put it in here. Soul of Emancipation. It just gets rid of... It doesn't target lands, so the common comparison is between this and Terastodon. Terastodon could get rid of lands. Yeah, you know what you did, Pikachu Star. You know what you did. This gets rid of... But this gets rid of creatures. And hey, we love our 7 mana, 3 color nonsense in this deck. And so something that can come down, get rid of 3 creatures, and sure, they get 3/3 angels. Our deck is going so much bigger than that. We don't care. It doesn't get rid of lands, but again, most of the time we don't care, and we already have cards that do cover those bases. And similarly, in the terms of sweet 5-color nonsense, we have the Kami War, which is, it just gets rid of any non-land permanent when it comes down, and then also has another mode, which is a second removal spell. So 2 removal spells, and then it flips over into a card that can get us stuff back. The rest of the card doesn't matter. It's 6 mana, it gets rid of something, and then has more that have to deal with. They then have to remove it, so it's a 2-for-1. Or more, if they let it stay around. Another fun card, though, that I want to play with, this is one's from my Maze's End side of it, is a card that really... I've been struggling to find a good place for it, and this feels perfect. Dakun Shadowslayer. Dakun comes in, is a planeswalker, comes in with loyalty equal to the number of lands you control. We have a lot of lands. We are half a lands deck, and we ramp and all that good stuff. He can come in, exile a creature, he can do some card selection with Surveil, and he can also bring back artifacts from our graveyard. So far, our artifact package, that ultimate, is not super relevant, but getting back a Tome of the Guild Pact is crazy. And there is a couple artifacts I am going to be considering that he brings back. And him just being able to have access to all of that is very, very good. And he's 3 mana for tons of loyalty. And so he's something I want to try out. And at the very worst, 3 mana, exile something. So now kind of getting into more of the utility. We're at 58. We're at 58 cards. So getting into kind of the more of the utility side of things. These are removal spells that get rid of things, yes, but they're going to be more serving utility purposes. And for this package, I have Abzan Charm. Abazan. No, Abzan. Abzan Charm, which Abzan Charm, again, is both it removes big creatures and it draws you cards, as well as it can buff stuff up. But the big one is it can draw you cards or get rid of something if you want to. Similarly, we have Prismari Command. If I can spell anything, Prismari Command, which Prismari Command helps us loot through stuff, can get us a treasure, so this is also can double as a temporary ramp spell, and can get rid of an artifact. And this is when you start to get... Oh, and actually there's another mode on it. And there's another mode on it too. Deals 2 damage to something. It can do a whole bunch of stuff. And when you start having these charms, when you start cycling through with Tome of the Guild Pack and Whitesmith Thieving, which you start to get some really, really good stuff going. Koligon's Command is a very similar thing. It can also deal 2 damage and or destroy an artifact, but it can also... the discard mode isn't used very often. Its big thing is being able to return creatures from the graveyard. And, of course, famously, Soulfire Grandmaster Koligon's Command was a devastating combination of cards in Standard. And evoking a devastating combination of Standard cards is something I am absolutely looking forward to. And finally, in this package, we have Sultai Charm. Sultai Charm is another, gets rid of an artifact, can cycle, get through stuff, does have a little bit... Unlike Prismari Command, which is card disadvantage, Prismari Command keeps you card neutral. And even though it also has removal, this card's just so good. And so those are some of the removal packages. And now all of a sudden we're at 62 cards, and we've just got tons of removal. And this is exactly what I want out of this deck, is all of the removal, as well as all the utility. Just I can have access to stuff. And you may be asking, what about counter spells? Do you want counter spells in this deck? And this is something I've debated at length. And both decks have one counter spell exactly in them. For me, I don't enjoy playing counter spells all that much. The only time I'm like, I wish I had a counter spell is when someone puts on this stack a spell like Approach of the Second Sun, or something that's like, I'm going to win the game off board now. And I'm like, where's my removals? Where's my counter spell? But most of the time I'm just sitting there with mana open. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like that feeling. This deck is a lot more play to the board now, deal with removal with stuff later. And so both decks only had one counter spell in them. And for Maze's End, that counter spell was Dovin's Veto. Just answer the things that I have problems with, which are usually non-creatures, because I can deal with creatures, with no questions asked. And in 5-color deck, the counterspell I chose was Endless Detour. Endless Detour is interesting because it's a utility spell. Its downside is the fact that it utilizes cards in the top of put card in the top of the deck, so it's not permanently gone. But you can target your own stuff as well, is kind of the trade-off for it. And I'm debating whether or not putting either of them in the deck. And the big reason is because we do utilize some Cascade. There are some Cascade stuff I will be talking about later that I'm going to be wanting to put into the deck. And counterspells don't work well with Cascade. Is it Charm? Okay, so Is It Charm deals, and this is actually a good time to pull up Scryfall. Is It Charm is deals 2 damage, draw 2, discard 2, and counter target non-creature spell unless its controller plays 2. That's actually a good question. Let me Scryfall. I should probably have pulled this up earlier. So, Is It Charm? I initially passed on Is It Charm because the counterspell is... My worries with the counterspells, they will probably have 2 mana. Since this is Commander, they will probably have the 2 mana. That being said, it does have the card disadvantage. But that is card disadvantage on the one hand, yes. But on the other hand, we already play cards that do that with Prismari Command. And the 2 damage can get rid of mana dorks and small creatures. It's a good thought. I'm not sure. I'll think about it. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for the suggestion. I'll keep that in the back of my mind, because that would be the kind of thing that would be worth thinking about. I'll have to find my Is It Charm. It's definitely a card I own. I'll have to just find it. But that is something for me to think about. I'll put it, you know what, since it's not a physical card, I'm going to put in the sideboard. Going to bet it's a Considering, which is so here. Where is the Considering package? I'm not sure where Considering is, but we'll find it. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll consider it. It's definitely that's a good suggestion. I will consider it. But right now I'm going to put the counterspells to the side. I'm not going to put them in. I don't count counterspells as removal. I count them as additional interaction. Now the next question is card draw. And we have some card draw already. In addition to Eureka Moment, Uro, and some of the stuff we've already dealt with, Tome of Legends. What are some other spells I'm playing for removal? Not removal. Card draw. Whew. And we have some very fun cards from both decks that are worth considering in this in this portion. And this is going to be a hard one. This is going to be a hard one. I'm going to have to start killing babies probably around now. Is just the sad fact of the world. So, looking over here in the 5-color deck, we've got the new Phyrexia. This card's great. This card is so good. She can just get you a bunch of stuff, and we have a bunch of types. As you've noticed, we've been putting a bunch of artifacts, enchantments, instants, sorceries, planeswalkers. Everything is here. When battles come out, those are going to be here. The only thing we don't have are tribal cards. It's because there aren't any good tribal cards. Or no, there are good tribal cards. This deck is not playing any of the tribal cards because it doesn't want to. It could be worth looking into, but I'm fine missing out on a card type from a long time ago. Choose to get other stuff. Some other, and on the 5-color side, we've also have access to stuff like Essica. I count Essica as card draw in a sense. She could be ramp, but digging through our deck and finding more things. Kyrnos, God of Storms, is kind of a mixture of card draw, removal. I guess he's not quite. Valky, God of Lies, this is really for Tybalt, the Imposter. Tybalt the Imposter absolutely is card draw. Comes down, gets you access to 4 cards. And we aren't necessarily always digging for cards, but what we are doing is looking for just card mass. And then dealing from there. Conflux, big card draw. So we've already kind of established some of our there's stuff that's like big card draw that just gets us tons of cards, that gets us cards, and then there's small card draw that makes sure that our deck is going. And on the small card draw side, there's nothing that is more powerful, more efficient than Expressive Iteration. This has been a really good card. So Expressive Iteration comes in the deck and begins bolstering up the kind of cycling side of the deck. I'm thinking, how many? What am I? Oh, here it is. It's literally right there. It's literally right in front of my face. Expressive Iteration comes down, multicolored, all the good stuff, everything that we're looking for out of that, and to kind of bolster the lower end cycling cards, what I call cycling cards, because right now when it comes to cycling, we've got Uro, we've got Abzan Charm, we've got Sultai Charm, Prismari Charm, Eureka Moment, Izzet Charmer if we end up playing that. That's engine-wise, we have Tome of the Guild Pact, and then I think the rest of the deck, I'm imagining, is kind of big card draw buddies. But there are cards not included. There are cards from the Maze's End side that I'm like, this could be some good card draw. This could be some good card draw here. And some of these are cards I adore. I absolutely adore. And what we're looking at is stuff like AC Tyrant of the Straits is really good. But I don't know if we're going to be playing AC per se. There's so many good cards I want to play. There's so many good cards I want to play. But we were mentioning artifacts earlier. And I want to finish up the conversation with the artifacts. I'm going to bury the lead. And one of just the jankiest, you won't see this card in any other place. But Etched Monstrosity. Etched Monstrosity is it's a 10/10 artifact creature that comes in with 5/1/1 counters, and then for 5 mana you draw 3. 10 mana to draw 3, not the best, but it's a 10/10 to boot. And what you can do is you can reanimate it with Dagon. This is a potential card draw aspect of something to play with. So I want to put that in. I'm also going to be putting in big old Conflux. And Conflux brings me around to another thing. One of our good card draw engines we have in our command zones, Cecily. We like big spells. This deck can play big spells for free with Cecily, and having those access to those is good. So Conflux is something that we can play. And Conflux is, you're empty-handed? Oh well, here's an entirely new hand that we can just play around with. Similarly, And that's a theme that comes up a lot in this deck. And there's a couple more cards that are kind of like, oh, you were empty-handed? Oh, well, here's a new hand. I already mentioned her. Atraxa, the Grand Unifier, can just get us a ton of cards. Just so many cards. Another card, this card is interesting. This is another card that's in support of Izzet Charm, because just looking at our dual color cards, and that's Niv Mizzet. Because when Niv Mizzet misses, Niv Mizzet Reborn in particular, it kind of, it hurts. It hurts a lot. It's worth it as a 6 mana, 5 mana, 6/6, draw 8 card. But I am going to be watching how many of these cards are 3 colors or 4 colors, and how many of these are 2 colors. And right now in the 2 color range, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16? Which is 16% of our deck. So it's something to think about. It's something to think about as we continue going in that direction. How many 2-color cards are in our deck? Another giant instant or sorcery that gives us a bunch of cards is Cruel Ultimatum. And this is just going to be rounding out our ultimatum package. We're going to be playing a lot of ultimatums in this deck. And over on the Maze's End side, Maze's End, I mentioned there's some really, really cool ones. We've got another ultimatum here in Genesis Ultimatum. And Genesis, Genesis. Genesis Ultimatum, where are you? Genesis Ultimatum is another 7 mana. You get the permanents out. We've got some expensive permanents. You just 5 cards. It's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful, and that's one that I wanna put in the deck. And another kind of card. So one card that I'm debating heavily in this kind of slot is Guild Summit. Guild Summit says you draw a card whenever a gate enters the battlefield under your control, which is another repeated source, but it's a blue card. But I think it's good. I don't want to play stuff like AC or Tatiova, because we aren't going to be hitting as many land drops as we would otherwise. But Guild Summit is a really nice one, because it also can retroactively draw us cards. So it's just good at any point within our curve. So early game, late game, whenever, Guild Summit can draw us cards. Some other nice cards from the side of the multicolored section, or not the multicolored, the Maze's End section we have, is another, this deck is about playing pet cards. So very few pet cards are going to be getting cut for better ones, and Hydroid Krasis is absolutely a pet card. This has not been a conversation that I've been having, but life is a thing in this deck, and managing life total is a thing in this deck. And Hydroid Krasis can gain you life. It can draw you cards. It's a big beater. And all that good stuff. We also have Sarkhan Unbroken as another strong potential, another Planeswalker. Draws cards, makes dragons, and his ultimate, although it's not very common, we do have a good number of dragons in this deck that we can search up. It is something I've been tracking, and we've got some great dragon boys to bring us along. Let's just bury the lead and bring out some of the other things I'm putting in. Cool cards I'm putting in card draw. Are they card draw? Maybe not, but the God package. And Keranos, I don't know where Keranos fits within this. He's card draw whenever you hit a land, but how often are you doing that? He's removal when you don't hit a land, though, and we need some gods. Or I want some gods. There we go. Now up to 75, so we've got 25 cards left. 25 cards left, and most of these at this point we're going to be dealing with Greed. Although there's a couple more card draw spells I do want to discuss while we're here. And let me just quickly sort of go through. When it comes to cycling cards, another cycling card, Baleful Strix, is a cycling card. It doesn't gain this card advantage, but it's a good one. Another great card advantage engines. Another great card advantage engine is, if I spelled it correctly, Enigma Sphinx. Where are you? Come on. Enigma Sphinx. I don't know how I spelled Sphinx wrong, but don't put it past me. This card's great. Enigma Sphinx is so good. It is so good. I just realized. We have 23. I thought we've already solved the lands, but I kicked that problem down to the future me. And now future me is going, oh, Sebastiano, you haven't dealt with the lands. Oh, that came fast. No, it was bliss thinking I had so many slots to fill. And now remembering, I have to put in 12 lands. I guess that's not as bad as it sounds. 12 lands. Really? Is it 12 lands? Because, yeah. Well, okay. 13 lands? 13 lands. 13 lands. What are we looking at in terms of colors? Mostly green. Green, blue is the biggest one. Then white, green, blue, then black, then white, then red. About expected. And how many lands do I have that need to get basics? Or how many cards do I have that need basics? This can be gates. This can be gates. This is non-forest, forest, forest. I think the initiative from this is basic. I don't think any of my other ramp spells are basic related. But it's something to consider. Okay. So 13. 13 is basically the equivalent of me going in and adding all the triomes and all of the shock lands that I had in the previous deck, except one, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But then the question becomes, how many not untapped lands do I have? Which triome don't I play? Well, I already don't play Chetmir's Garden. Or, this is basically telling me to cut Savai Triome? Do I do that? Cut Savai Triome? I actually really like that it tells you the percentages in the bottom. We might need to bump up our white a little bit. While cutting back on, we buy Blood Crypt, or is it Blood Crypt that gets cut? It might be Blood Crypt that gets cut. In that case, if it is Blood Crypt that gets cut, how many untapped lands do we have out of the gate? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then we have 12 untapped lands, which is low. I think this means going back and trimming some of our gates. Cliff Gate, I think, gets moved to considering with this announcement. Where are you, Cliffgate? We don't need untapped lands that much, and eventually we will get ourselves Gone Gate, but it is something to consider. I think it's something for me to think about in the future. I think this is just something that we are going to be watching and tracking as I play games going forward. And one thing I'm also not including are the City of Brass and Mana Confluence. And the reason behind that really isn't the fact that they're not good. They're very good. I have noticed this life, although one thing that was an issue of the 5-code deck that will not be an issue of this deck is life total. It could just pay so much life total. Just so much life, and next thing you're looking at, you're at 20, and you're like, what the heck am I doing? As like someone comes to attack you. And so there's an extra emphasis on life gain that I put into the deck because of that. Probably isn't as important here. Zagoth. Due to just, you know, the fact that we have this since we have the mana base of the gates. Once we get the Gone Gate, our deck suddenly is full of basic duels again. Or not basic duels, but just like comes into play untapped, taps for the colors that you need them. So the question is, how quickly can we find Gone Gate? That's going to be a real consideration. Because without Gone Gate, so now we're at 37. And this actually also puts into question Gateway Plaza. You know what? I'm also going to put Gateway Plaza in considering and put back Mana Confluence. And the reason behind this decision is due to the fact that Mana Confluence, where did I put that? Is it going to be over here? Yeah. Is it? Where are my... Oh, it's over here. Somewhere over here. Mana Confluence. Mana Confluence is just having did I put it in? It's in here. Yeah, there it is. Ironically, the art they show here is the same art as the one I just took out. Although as the Gateway Plaza Foresight. But anyway, yeah, so Mana Confluence is definitely just we want untapped green sources as soon as possible is basically what the answer is. Yeah, and so that leaves us with 37 lands. And then the important part, gate count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 gates. That's fair. We don't need all 10. We aren't go hard, get all 10 out. Actually, there is probably some science behind the idea of having less than 10. Or not having less than 10. There's no science behind that, but having not that many in which you don't have opponents going, how many gates do you have? What's your gate count at? And stressing themselves out, and then you can just kill them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14's better. Anyway, yeah, so that seems like a good count. And now that leaves us with all but 10 cards to include in our deck from the fun things that the other previous decks had. And this is when the babies are truly going to start to die. Just when the babies are going to start dying. It's just the sad truth of the matter. And so there's a lot of fun cards that are going to be cut now. I've got a pile of remaining cards I want to deal with. How big is this pile? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24. So I need to cut 14 cards from these. Some of these are going to be easy. Which is the good thing. So the first one is the 5-color deck played both Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Swiftfoot Boots is for sure getting cut. Lightning Greaves maybe. Another thing, this is going to technically cut a card, but that count, Eerie Ultimatum was counted twice. And that just means that it's a card that's shared by both decks, therefore it's just a card in the deck. So, we cut a card. Technically, we got 2 cards from the pile, put 1 into the deck, and we now have 9 cards, basically. And so then the question becomes, which of the rest of these cards do we really want? And there are some... this is hard. This is hard. This is going to be hard. Most of these are from the 5-color side. We have fun cards like... Well, Last Stand, I think, just gets cut. Because how many cards with land types do we have? 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, as opposed to the previous deck that had a lot more than that, Last Stand is getting cut. Which is... Did I already cut it? I already cut it. Some other cards, Tatyova and AC, already decided to cut those. Genesis Wave, getting cut. Probably going to have to cut Corsair Crewfix. That's not... Oh, here we go. There's Last Stand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Question... So the cards that are currently on the list are, for the 5-color side, All Sun's Dawn. Not Conflux. Most of the sorceries got in, or at least are in the current version of the deck. In here, lots of creatures. Progenitus. Nicol-Bolas, Godsire, Chromaticore. which are all very good cards, and I wish all of them could be in this deck. Belladros. Oh my goodness, Belladros. On the Maze's End side, we have cards like Uvenwald Hydra as just another land tutor that's a big beater. We have Garth, the previous commander, as just a utility card. We have sorceries like Bring to Light. They're getting cut, or not getting cut. And of course, Villainous Wealth. I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And let me actually take a look at some of the cards that we already have in the deck. How many... What's our card draw looking like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, we've 18. Yeah, we got tons of card draw. Probably means Kyrnos and Tiro of Miletus are less important, but they're also kind of ramp. But they're also not necessarily something they need. Eternal Witness, the Eternal Witness, Eternal Problem. What does Bring to Light? That's a card that's currently on my maybe board. Bring to Light, your instant sorcery with CMC 3 or less. So you are all of these. Which isn't... You are all of these. Your Supreme Verdict, Explore the Underdark, Temple Discovery. These... Not so much in the sorcery side. And creature... Your Niv Mizzet, which is a big one. Huh. Bring to Light versus Eldamri's Call. I think Eldamri's Call gets cut with Bring to Light in the mix, but I don't know if Bring to Light makes it. Bring to Light might just get cut because of Conflux. Conflux just gets everything to such a massive extent. Okay, one thing I will say, one place I'm going to take the initiative is All Sun's Dawn. All Sun's Dawn is making it in as soon as it loads. Yep. All Sun's Dawn is one of the reasons why I wanted to build this deck, and therefore it's coming in. Can't get cut. The All Sun's Dawn Conflicts package is just... Yeah, that is a good question, because Cruel Ultimatum... Yeah, and that is something I was thinking about, because Cruel Ultimatum might not be that much better. That might be a good cut, especially because Cruel Ultimatum is against Bring to Light and against Genesis Ultimatum, and there are... It was originally in here as a card draw spell plus something to play off of Cecily. But in the grand scheme of things, it's, you know, I have things to play with Cecily. I've got 3 ultimatums. I've got a Conflicts, Casualties of War. And it does only target one thing. So I'm going to put that back down there. I don't know if that's still better than Bring to Light, but it is a slot to open up for some of the other stuff. We also have General Ferris Roderick, which I'm going to be putting in the deck. He's important as a low CMC thing that just makes a bunch of stuff. He's something he didn't serve a purpose in terms of, like, he's not removable, he's not card draw, that's why he's coming up this late. But he is really important for the deck. And stuff like that. In terms of, like, being a card advantage, low cost card advantage engine. I'm thinking of cutting Kyranos. Because he's not a reliable card draw engine, like some of these other ones are. He is a god, and so cutting him makes the World Tree's alternate mode much, much less impressive. But I think that's fine. So I'll move him to maybe board. We just have so much, like, possible things we're playing around with. Did I get rid of the... ultimatum? I think the ultimatum is no longer in the package. I don't know where I put it, though. No, I think it's still sneaking around in the actual physical pile. But where? I'm not seeing it, so maybe it's not. Anyway. I think some cards, we've got Nicol Bolas the Ravager. This is also kind of like a multi-purpose good stuff card. Progenitus is another just kind of, it's not, this is just a pet card I wanted to put in this deck. Because I still haven't cast it. Somehow, all the times of playing it, I still haven't cast this card. But anyway, so puts me up to 93 as 7 cards. And what piles look like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so 4 cuts of some sort. Either from the actual deck or from the cards I'm looking at. From outside of the cards I'm looking at, I'm thinking Maelstrom Nexus goes. It's just 5 mana, do nothing, and it hasn't done all that much for the times I played it. It's something I've noticed. I'm also debating Ulvenwald Hydra. What does Ulvenwald Hydra... like, okay, so it's a big creature. It's a big creature, but it's single color. But it gets Maze's End. It gets Gone Gate, which are important. Maybe it's still to be considered. Now we're on a really hard cuts. Yeah, 6 mana, I mean... we're playing 10 mana cards. I do not care about 6 mana. It is 6 mana, but we're not... this is not speed, this is not efficient, this is big. That's the big thing we're working with. Like... the cards I'm considering... Lightning Greaves and Eternal Witness are the only efficient ones. We're talking Kyranos and Meletus in the 99. Belodros Witherbloom. Garth One Eye. Villainous Wealth. I guess Bring to Light is efficient. So that's what it's competing with. Godsire. It's not competing with the most, but and so, but because it's 6 mana for a 7/7 minimum. Plus, it gets bigger with all the lands, and it helps you find that Maze's End no matter what stage of the game you're in. And I guess that kind of brings it... I wouldn't count it as a ramp spell. It's sort of a tutor effect in that regard. So, Bring to Light... Nicol Bolas helps the Bring to Light idea. Is something that's notable. Too bad it can't... If it could search up artifacts and enchantments, that would make it really good. But I think that's the point. 10. 3 cards? Need 3 cards. You know, I'm actually going to put... What I'm going to do is... Oh. Okay, I'll respond to that later. I'm going to add in the cards. I'm going to add in the cards that I'm looking at. And just cut them from here. Just so you guys also... So then it's just a very simple... These are the cards. Lightning. We do have... Okay, so... Lightning Greaves. Yeah, so if Maze's End goes to our graveyard... what do we have to bring back Maze's End? We do have some ways. So, we have Eerie Ultimatum here. Gets it back. Is one thing. We also are considering Eternal Witness as another one. It's also, not going to lie, not the biggest deal. Which is part of the juke that this deck can do. Is people spend all this energy getting rid of the Maze's End. And it's really one of our packages. It's like, we can win with Maze's End. Absolutely. We want to win with Maze's End. But we've also playing Pregen as Nicol Bolas, Valky. Like, we have win conditions. If people spend their entire energy getting rid of one Maze's End, then yeah. And we also have ways to bring it back. So Eerie Ultimatum, Eternal Witness can bring it back. If we need it to. I think, are there other ones? Other cards? I think we have other cards. Oh, I guess Kami War. I think... Oh, but this is of an opponent's choice. So, we don't have the most, but there are ways. There are ways to bring it back. Ulvenwald Hydra. Ulvenwald Hydra is only $3.99. Whoa. Villainous Wealth. If I can spell... No. Villain. I'm starting to... I forgot how, like, exhausting streaming can be. Garth One-Eye. If we ended keeping this in the deck, another way to get back Maze's End. Since we can play, what is it? Regrowth on it. Bellatrix Witherbloom. I think I'm going to cut Kianosin Tiro. As much as we love the Gay Kings, they kind of are in that same package of lands and draw, which we do not need any more help with. And them being 2/8s, also not something we need help with. And Romanticor. All right, so that puts up to 102. So 2 cuts. 2 cuts. 2 cuts in this whole deck. Which is quite difficult. I mean, it starts bringing me back to this arcane signet that I talked about earlier, honestly. How many ways do we have to ramp? 1, 2, 3, sort of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, sort of 14, 15, sort of 16, 17, sort of 18, sort of 19, sort of 20, 21. We've got a lot of ways to get extra mana. Okay, but dedicate ramp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I guess 10. I don't think we need Arcane Signet. Although it does weaken our quick ramp. That's the big thing, is it lowers our quick ramp. That's the big issue. It harms our quick ramp a lot. So it might just earn itself a place through that. Yeah, so our curve is, we actually, despite the fact that we're talking about 8 drops and stuff, this is our curve. We have 16, oh no, that 14, so this is Soul Ring. We got a lot of 5 drops. We got a lot of 7 drops, which is to be expected. I mean, there is argument to bringing down the curve, and I think bringing down the curve keeps the Arcane Signet. I mean, we're not going to be perfectly bringing down the curve, because this deck is debating on 8 drops. Yeah, 5 and 7 are absolutely stacked. I'm not as worried about just completely overstacking, because this deck isn't trying to be efficient. But the 5s are a little on the more concerning side. But we do have some of those 5s, like, okay, so what happened? So what are the 5s that are bringing up that 5 count? Is the question. What are those 5s? Some of those are Explore the Underdark. Explore the Underdark is one of them. Sarkhan is another one. Okay, there aren't, I guess, Urban Evolution is sort of a ramp spell. Okay, I guess in the event of cutting an Uvenwald Hydra, which Uvenwald Hydra is up here in 6. In the event of cutting an Uvenwald Hydra, how many ways do we have? We've got 1 to find Maze's End. 2 ways to find Maze's End. 3 with Bring to Light. But I'm less worried about finding Maze's End as I am finding Gongate. How many ways do I have to find Gongate? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About this 5, is that enough? 5 enough? I'm a little worried 5 isn't enough. Honestly. Because our mana base just struggles without Gaunt Gate. That's like, Gaunt Gate is so much more important than Maze's End, honestly. Which is probably a good reason for Uwenwald Hydra. But by the time Uwenwald Hydra comes out, is that relevant? Because I'm only getting to Uwenwald Hydra in... Okay, so if for Uwenwald Hydra searching up Maze's End, I don't think I'm worried. But if Uwenwald Hydra's main purpose is searching up Gaunt Gate, which is what my main purpose of putting it in deck is, I think at that point it's too late. Because suddenly we're just dealing with... Because I would have had to spend 5 turns going through. So I think that's a good argument for bringing that into consideration, which then leaves but one card. No, Sylvan Scrying, that's... No. That's just... That's the 2 mana one, right? No, that's... Yeah, Sylvan Scrying is not... That's just not... That's antithetical to what we're trying to do here. Since it is more cost efficient, but it isn't ramp. And it isn't... Like, we don't have enough... Yeah, it's just... I don't think Sylvan Scrying is good for this deck. Signet is so much more important as a ramp spell. And Uwenwald Hydra is... Like, the important part of Uwenwald Hydra was the land search. But it's also the fact that it's a 6 mana giant creature. Sylvan Scrying is 2 mana, find a land. That's all it is. I think is my worry. So I'm just, yeah, I'm going to say no to Sylvan Scrying. But this does solidify Bring to Light in my mind. Even though it's not really. One more. One more. And there's just probably not a good answer for this one. It's just something that hurts. I guess Uwenwald Hydra also searches up World Tree. Is that relevant? It also searches up Field of the Dead. I mean, Sylvan Scrying also does that, but then Uwenwald Hydra is a threat on top of all of that utility. How good is Lightning Greaves? This is one of the big questions, is Lightning Greaves. So, on the plus side, Lightning Greaves is a busted card that keeps our commander and big creatures protected. Because we got so... But on the downside... And it gives haste, which is relevant. but there's so positives. Gives haste, protects important cards. I think the place that's most relevant is with Cecily. Downside is we've got 23 creatures in this deck. And how many of these creatures don't get value immediately? So, Cecily and Othlum I need to untap with. So Cecily, Othlum, Garth, Godsire are Soulfire Grandmaster, Chromantic Core, although Chromantic Core is a different beast altogether. These are all General Ferris Rockrick is another good one for Lightning Greaves. But Atraxa doesn't need Greaves. Beldros both does and doesn't need Greaves. Beldros, Strix, Coin Lyrical, they don't need Greaves. Enigma Sphinx doesn't need Greaves. Essica is usually going to be on the bridge side, doesn't need Greaves. Hydroid Krasis. I mean, yeah, so Maelstrom Wanderer, okay, so here's the two. Here are the portions of that. On the one hand, Maelstrom Wanderer probably is better. I don't have one. I would have to trade for one or buy one, which is my right. Yeah, because and Maelstrom Wanderer probably is very good in this deck. Honestly, haste is not the part I want. In all honesty, the part of Lightning Greaves that I'm looking at is protection. The haste is a good secondary effect. I guess haste is good with Cecily and Garth in particular. But for the rest of the cards, really haste is... Because we're not... Combat damage is not our primary win condition. Is the other thing. Yeah, because... But Maelstrom Wanderer is a good suggestion. I just don't have one right now. And also I really want to play Godsire. But... Yeah, it's just it's just not right now available. The other cards you suggested I have, but that one I don't have. This deck is a physical deck in front of me right now as we speak. I'm literally building it in person as we speak with cards. Is part of the thing. So, that's why some of the numbers are funny. Maelstrom Wanderer. Probably something to look for. Probably something to consider for the future. Is Etched Monstrosity just bad? This is one of my pet cards, but it's just... Do I have to accept that this card's just bad? Like, to what extent... When do I break down and say, alright, Etched Monstrosity's just bad? Yeah, and this is the efficient card section. I mean, this is absolutely a pet card. Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, and this is pet card.deck. That is why I'm playing Godsire. That is why I'm playing Hydroid Krasis. That is why I'm playing Progenitus. This is pet card.deck. This is not. Yeah. So I agree. In which case, Garth provides support for Lightning Greaves. I guess my thing with Lightning Greaves is every time I've had it out, I just feel like it's not doing anything. But I think that's just because people can't play stuff on the cards that I put it out. And then it does allow the cards I put it on to shine. I think is something that's important to recognize from my end. Because just because Lightning Greaves, and I know from the past of how much Lightning Greaves has caused issues when I'm playing against it. Another question that has bothered me in years past, or in times past when I'm cutting this deck, it is the last time I built the 5-color deck, the last card that made it in was Eternal Witness. And what actually, and here's a good point. Is Eternal, because before Eternal Witness is the selling point of Eternal Witness is it's a card that, because I have All Sun's Dawn to get back a bunch of stuff, and Eerie Ultimatum to get back a bunch of stuff. I have ways to getting back cards. Eternal Witness, though, was the card that let you go uber rebuy. Since Eternal Witness could get back the cards that get back Eternal Witness. So Eerie Ultimatum would get back Eternal Witness. And Kolaghan's Command. That was the other one that brings those cards back. The Kami War. Because I think these are all cards that say... Because I think Eternal Witness was the only card that could get those cards back. But we're now playing Garth. And Garth can cast Regrowth. So Garth is in Eternal Witness's slot as a creature that can be brought back via Eerie Ultimatum and Kolaghan's Command. And now the downside to Garth is it is not as efficient as Eternal is by any stretch of the imagination, but that wasn't the question we were asking. So I'm going to cut Eternal Witness. Because Garth is just cooler. And the final question is, do I want to try and find a way to bring back Ulvenwald Hydra? Because we have a deck here. I really want to bring back Ulvenwald Hydra. I'm going to bring back Ulvenwald Hydra as a consideration while we're here. Because imagine, Chromaticore is so fun. Ulvenwald Hydra with Chromaticore. I think one of the most glorious things I did with this deck was Chromaticore Godsire. Just so beautiful. So beautiful. Of course, Chromaticore very good with Cecily. Ulvenwald Hydra. What do you do, Ulvenwald Hydra? Who to cut? How good is Guild Summit in this deck? I think we have 13, 14 gates? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We've got 14 gates. How many card draw engines do we have? 1. We have a lot of like card draw things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, can be 10, can be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, yeah. I think we cut Guild Summit. Remove Guild Summit. It's it's just not as efficient in this version of the deck since we're playing 30% less. Where is that? Where did I put the Physical Guild Summit? Here it is. And I think with that, I think with that, we have ourselves a deck. And you guys can't hear it, but I have the Avengers theme playing. Or not the Avengers theme. This is a heroic celebratory theme song from some movie playing in my head. And that feels like what we have here. Just an absolute conglomeration in the maximum. But this deck sure is a 100-card deck. Okay, yeah. So for information, Moxfield counts the commanders in the total. So for example, if you take the numbers, I did some testing with this earlier. It does so. Just to make sure, so 37 plus 3, 40, plus 4, 44, plus 10, 54, plus 20, yeah, honestly, plus 21, 95, yeah, plus 3, so 98, 99, 100. Yep. So it counts the commanders in the main deck. Yeah, that... I don't know how I would get the other two. I mean, at that point, I would just have to go into full psycho mode and just... It's so funny. At the beginning, you're like, oh, look at all these cards. You add, and then all of a sudden the cuts, it's just... The final two cuts are always the hardest. Like, the final, 2 or 3 cuts where you're just like, it's just one card. I've already got 100. What is the loss of one card? And it will be a lot, but no, this deck looks good. This deck, okay. Asterix. This deck looks fun. You may play it if you wish. You may wish not to play it. I am going to put the link to this Moxfield in the chat so folks can check it out themselves. But this deck looks like it's a pile of cards, and I'm going to enjoy playing. And I have high hopes based off of the experience I've had with both of the decks that were used as a source for this deck. I guess for reference, it's about the deck ratio looks like this. I guess here's a good question: what ratios of each of the decks ended up in the final cut? What percentages? This is a good question. Because you have, again, the mana base from the first deck, the win conditions from the second deck. I think it's more, yeah. And it's about what I expected. We had just for reference, it's about 40-60%, the two halves here. So maybe closer to 70-30, 35-65. Final guess. Actually, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. It's exactly 40, 60. I got the first time. So, all right. Yeah. Sweet. Thank you all so much for joining me on this this little journey through the cutting process. This has been fun. I'm going to be wrapping up for today. I've been streaming for about 3 hours, and my voice is hurting. But I hope you enjoyed the stream, and if you did, it would be awesome if you could leave a follow and all that good stuff. Yeah. But I'm going to be calling it here. But this has been very fun, very fun. I'm looking forward to hopefully doing more streams in the near future. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Kemtichi, is that how you pronounce it? Kemtichi? It's KEMTG. MD. I can't speak. Did I mention I need to? MTG. K. Okay. Appreciate it, K. Thanks for the follow. And all the support. I'll be looking for a Maelstrom Wanderer. Might not replace Godsire, but a Maelstrom Wanderer would be an absolute blast in this deck. But it's been a wild ride, and yeah. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. It's been fun hanging out with y'all, and I hope you have a good one. I will catch you folks later. Bye, everybody.